you must reckon time as a time plane. So you can think of it both as a two-dimensional thing, no, three-dimensional. Think of a rectangular prism and a sphere at the same time. This takes a whole lot of mental bending. Time is relative, and it must be thought of. Oh shit, I had it so well put up. It's physical and it's intangible. So think of, picture yourself at 18. As dying at age, 100. Like the end where you're too complex thoughts. To realize time, we exist in time planes, but those planes like stack up like a growing tree, but go around. It's all in. Oh, that's it. You must think of it as a set speed and a malleable relativity. So the set speed is like the human sophisticated concept of year. That is how we rationalize time. Like a dog would rationalize it by like dividing the feels of days. So if it's like, he will just become attuned to the feelings of the people. So like on a Wednesday, he feels ambivalent. On Friday, he's knowing to prepare himself for the irritable person that's not on a date. We have it in chronology and in stages. So just like dogs is stages. Ours is chronology, but we have both. So that concept of time, the base unit is looking back on life, gets bigger. Year, think of year. Moving forward, we will operate first on the day level, and then we compartmentalize day hours. Moving forward, you conceptualize it short, moving backward, long. So after a certain amount of years, you're going to conceptualize your years in terms of stages in your life, where you were living, what you were doing, who you were hanging out with, your general moods even. Proceed over prevailing trends. So it's like first 3 years. It starts with year. So you do all three at both times. So even in the present tense, moving forward, you have a general outlook for your year. That's made at specific times, different according to different people. But it's not like a set in stone plan unless you signed a contract to work with this company or to be with this team, or you're getting married this year and you already have it planned. But you can try to picture yourself a year ahead of time, but not all the time. You work within the day. Moving back, so we rationalize time by chronology. That chronology is a set speed. And that, so how you set the thing is like the layer. Think of time as time plane, so it's a layer. Each, like the base unit of counting backwards. The base unit of chronology from the ahead looking backwards perspective. Because in so much that, it makes sense, in so much that time is it's an abstract synthetic construct that we create, but in so much we create it, the brain adapts around it. So like if we had made it like a 9-month year according to a pregnancy, or a 350-day year according always to the lunar year, you would have slightly different variations, and it would be kind of more synchronized on like some sort of like really sophisticated primate legislative 4-year cycle, because you'd cut out the leap year. Leap year we didn't create it, but if you're going to measure the unit as one time around the sun exactly, it's 1 year and 6 hours and a couple minutes. So it exists, but it's not, but only because you base chronology on the sun. If they never conceived of doing that, you would be on just the lunar one, and you would have the nuance of the lunar wobble. So this, when you're thinking of time is a plane. That plane, so like think of a 3-dimensional grid. You can think of it as a rectangular prism. Think of like a 2-dimensional square. And then that square has layers. Has a layer. It's like skin. So you have your bottom skin, your neck, your subepidermal, and then the top epidermis. Like think of it as like a chemical half-life, but in reverse. They're not half-life. But it's according to an algorithm. So on one level, time as a plane is that square with like it's a rectangular prism, because the squares are however you would just like look at 365 days as a two right triangles, two congruent right triangles. Doesn't have to be triangle, but so that's a square, and then it's like a thin layer, because you have like, let's say you have 100 layers over the course of your life. The bottom layer is so deep you're not remembering only the things that you've remembered your whole life. When you thought back to them, do you retain by the time you're 100 of when you were like 4? So you let go of little impressions as when you were 4 that you even think about. I know I did in high school a couple times. It's like really deep thoughts, not deep, but like just ponderings, just reminiscings, not even necessarily emotionally based. But like when I drove by the Dairy Queen in Aurora, Illinois on Route 34 in high school, not every time, but most times I would think of my first taste memory, which was an Oreo Blizzard. That store is still there to this day, as it was as of September of 2021. It is right now March 24th of 2022. So the thin layer is the one that is like the base unit of. So you even as a kid, as you move forward through life, you're thinking of yourselves as a 6th grader, as a 7th grader. You define yourself on years. You're 16 years old, you're 17 years old. So that is the thin layer. So it's a rectangular prism in the shape of a square. And those things grow moving forward, like just like pages in a book. Except you're not taking them off. You're dropping them down, and you don't. And like, so then you think, well, do you start top left or bottom right, or bottom left to top right? And neither. You start in the center conceptually, like a pinpoint. What did I just see? A penny. Oh, that's not a penny. Oh my God. I'll go into methodology later. You start in the center of a conceptual square-shaped rectangular prism, which is a time plane. and then like you don't do like it's all that 365 days are there, but some of them, but it's like they have to, the days themselves, think of as going how the Earth in like a more right angle spin. So it's like, think of it as a chemical process taking place at the molecular level. So like by the time that layer is done, your year is done, which is both set as a collective, ubiquitous, unanimous year. It's year 2022, but also as according to your birth date. So it's both very fixed and, very collective and very individual. So by the time that layer is done, every one of those 365-day little atoms or molecules, because then like you can break that sun that day, which is like the Earth, into its both its sleeping and waking, and then it's 16 hours of being awake for normal people, with fluctuations, give and take with everybody. So by the time that layer is done, what your memory retains about year 2022, by the time it will be done, will be those individual balls on it, which ones you can pick out, you'll be able to pick out like the day. You'll remember what you're doing on your birthday that year, if you try hard enough. But mostly you'll remember them, the important days of those years, except that it's like a really significant day because that helps you reinforce it in your memory. Those will be by month and by season. I'm so thirsty. That layer, by the time it's done, is a layer to flip back to, so to speak, of your memory looking back. But then that day, which is like the micro unit chronology, is a sphere. So the way the sphere progresses through its molecular chronology is it spins laterally. And so you don't think of it as like you would otherwise have to think of it from that center point of the rectangular square-shaped prism time plane as like going around in like starting from the center and like layers and layers going around and around until the last one of that macro molecule chronology, which is the year. In between, you have the several micros. You have weeks, months, seasons. Some places have 2 seasons. Some places have 4. Some places more like 3. You don't have a whole lot of there's not a really just set spring or fall. It goes from being really nice and always super comfortable to being immediately without able to be comfort at some point throughout the day. Anyways, so those, I have to have a drink. You would have to be in the center. Otherwise, if you're in the center, if it's not gonna, oh man, now I lost the thought. Why did I digress into the macro, the micro? The micro is the day. That's the sphere going lateral. Macro is the year. That's the sheet. Now, by the time that sheet's done, 365 days and an extra one on leap year, will have gone through the lateral one. So to conceptualize that,